My network is really, really bad. I don't know what's going on. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, please.
Okay. Sorry, my network is bad. So I'm sharing my screen and um, we'll kick off from here. So when we talk about reasoning, like I'll share my screen now. When we talk about reasoning like an analyst, we are talking about um, you know um, how you get to reason or how you get to. Can we see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, good. So, reasoning like an analyst, what do you mean by that? Why are we reasoning like an analyst? What are we trying to talk about? But as we go through these slides and this class, we get to understand that sometimes we need to reason like an analyst and we need to um, do things like analysts should do. What separates a good analyst from a great one. Why do we need to think out of how people would think of? So, reasoning like an analyst. First thing, we're thinking like an analyst. What are we trying to talk about? So, in today's data-driven world, analytical thinking isn't just a skill; it's a superpower. So, an analyst mindset involves, curiosity to ask questions. So, I can remember the first time we had, when we had the creative ops sections, where we had different people, from each field coming to talk about their, field. I can remember when I was talking about data analysis, I was saying something about when you want to do anything as an analyst, you need to make sure you are and asking the right question. So as an analyst, and your mindset should always involve what? Curiosity to do what? To ask the right questions, the ability to see patterns when others are seeing chaos. So you being an analyst, you say, oh, okay, with this particular thing I'm seeing, this is what I am observing, this is what I'm it's quite very important for you as an analyst, to have that mindset of so it's important for you to have that mindset that involves what you being able to see patterns when others are seeing chaos. You should be commitment to making decision based on evidence. You're not just saying, oh, this is happening or this is what happened. What are you using to back up what you just gave up as to the decision you just made? So and also you should be resilient to challenges assumption to challenge assumption deeper. So, for example, when somebody says, "Oh, this is what I was able to detect from this particular data set," blah blah blah. So, how can you get to do what to challenge as assumption? And you dig deeper. So, for example, we're saying the average sales
Mommy,
from a particular
okay.
company is so this. What are you using to back up?
How much this baby collect?
What are you using to back up what you are doing in terms of okay this is the assumption, this is what I could get, because sometimes when you want to do some things you need to look at it from the angle of okay, this is the probability of this particular thing going this way and this way. You are trying to not just guess, you're trying to not just you know not try to be forming concession or trying to just say, oh, because this and this, okay, they're not like that. You are trying to make sure you're curious. Your mindset is involved in being curious to ask right questions, your ability to see different patterns where others see chaos, commitment to making decisions based on what evidence and willingness to challenge assumption and dig deeper. Now, why analytics? So why analytics? Today, if you look at it, you know that the world runs on data. Yeah. So analytics transform raw data into actionable insights that does what? That drives success. Analytics transform raw data into what? Actionable what? Insight that drives success. So if you look at it, data is everywhere. But without analytics, it's just numbers. Literally, data is everywhere. Without analytics, it's just what? It's just numbers. So A particular role or the analyst role is to do what? To translate raw information into insight and outcome. That's what you're supposed to do, to translate what? Raw information into what? Insight and what? An outcome. So if you look at it now, one of the things that we look at, the insights that drive success is informed decision making, competitive advantages, risk mitigation, effective optimization, and innovation what? Catalyst. So if you look at it, data is playing an increasingly central and is moving, is increasing, centrally, and it's this critical role it is playing in business world today. So some company gets to seek information from data. When you make this data driven decision, it's easy for you to say, oh, I think what is going on in this company is this and this. These are what we are to look at in order for us to grow in this particular aspect of the company. So analytics, it helps us transfer data into actionable insight that will drive what? Success. And if you look at it, you already said data is everywhere. So, and you can see data runs what? On the world. The world runs on data. So we as analysts, we are in that position to be able to do what? To help translate and do what? And turn this raw information into what? Insight and outcome. Let's look at some things. Business intelligence for data and data science. Business intelligence versus what? Data science. So if we look at it now, you look at it from the business intelligence aspects. You as an analyst, you are obviously going to be business intelligent inclined. So you are focused on what's happened, what on your focus is on actually on what happened. So and what are we trying to say? You are saying, okay, what happened? Why is this? Why is this? That kind of thing. But as data scientists, in data science aspect, they predict what would happen. What would have happened? Okay, well, let's look at this. Let's look at that. Let's look at this option to in order to predict what could have happened. And as business intelligence, you are also on historical reporting. You're also on historical reporting. Yeah, in terms of you are okay. Let's look at what has happened from this particular data from the past. Try to use it to look at what is going to happen in terms of saying, oh, we have a particular monthly sales, whereas we've made some sales for like some months in a year, and we want to predict or forecast what kind of sales we will have in the next 2 to 3 years. It's possible, yes, as an analyst to do that. With the help of you using Power BI, some Excel, to run stuff like this, you'll be able to do things like that. So using historical reports would help you do what? To be able to, generate an insight about what could happen next in some time to come. And you're looking at also in data science aspects is advanced statistical modeling, where they start, getting to use some models in order for them to what report and then in order to see how they can get some prediction. And also as a business intelligent person, you are also using structured data. That's why you see in terms of this is when you open your data into Excel, you're seeing it in a table form, because by the time you see some data, you see them in it is comma separated way value or TSV or an Excel format, or data is structured. But as data scientists, all type of data, they can use all type of data, whereas they are trying to get data from different sources, whether it is structured or not structured, in order for them to get what they need to do on time, and then get to that particular depth and root of the problem they're having in order to create solutions. So as an analyst, one of the things you're doing also is to create dashboards and visualizations. Yes, after you've gotten your reports, you are in the data, you have been able to analyze it, and the next thing is what? Create dashboards for us, visualize it for us, so that in order for non-technical people to be able to see these things and easily find it, what to understand, sharing to stakeholders, so in order for them to do what? See what you were able to get out of the particular data you analyze. And if you look at data scientists, they use machine learning algorithm. We are talking about algorithms that they can use to get answers, and then see how they can say, okay, from this particular model we use, this is what and what we're able to do. And from the analytical aspect, you have answers to what? Known questions. Answers to what? Known questions. But data scientists, they do what? They try to discover new questions with what they have been able to get. So more retained or more of the goals of a business intelligent person is they identify patterns and trends, to turn data into what? Insight. They identify patterns and trends to turn data into what? Insight. And their deliverables tend to be what? Visuals, reports, and dashboard. That's why you can see as we're trying to differentiate between business intelligence and data science. Data science. But when you're talking about data science, the test hypothesis through experiments, and iterations. Yeah, and your deliverables tend to be algorithms and statistical models, just from these particular differentiations we have here. Now, moving on, work with me. The analytical trail. The analytical trail. So what am I saying? What separates good analysts from what? From great ones? There are three key attributes. Three key attributes. Number one, strategic thinking. Strategic thinking. You need to have a big picture perspective. Having a big picture perspective is being able to think strategically, and it's very, very critical because especially when you are in a particular in an early stage of an analytical workflow. So it is very, very important look at the big picture from your from that perspective. Have a problem solving mindset, ability to connect dots. You are looking at numbers, and the next thing you're turning into what? Insight. Your business acumen. You must follow an hypothesis driven approach. So for you, for you to know that strategic thinking is important. It is actually important. It's all about understanding business goals. You pinpoint or identifying key factors for success or failures. And trying to give clear and tactical analysis in order for you to do what? For you to drive a desired outcome for you. So it's important, to do what? To be able to know that as an analyst, in order for you to separate good ones from the great ones, is to make sure you are strategic in your thinking. The second one we have to look at is what? Technical proficiency. Technical proficiency. What are we saying? In terms of data manipulation skill, your statistical knowledge, expertise in terms of SQL, Excel, etc., understanding data structures and visualization techniques. So the ability for you to execute whether a code, you are writing a particular code, or you are building an extract transform load pipeline, which is ETL, or you are designing data visualization and dashboard. It's in terms of you, being able to think technically, your technical proficiency. It is very, very important. These are things that separate good analysts from the great one. Another one we should look at also is the communication skills. The communication skills. What are we saying? You should have the ability to tell story with data. Like I said, sometimes most people do the analysis, and the next thing they are thinking of is, because they are doing the analysis, they try to just do it as they want to, in order to just give it out to the stakeholders like that. But then it's important for you to be able to tell this story with data that even non-technical person can understand what is going on with the chart and then the visuals he or she can see. So the communication skill, storytelling with data, stakeholder management, clear presentation of complex idea. As an analyst, you are not trying to make something simple complex. You're trying to make something complex simple. Active listening and ability to influence decision. So it is important for us, as analysts, to be able to, have this good communication skill in order for us to do what? To be able to let people that are not even, in our field be able to understand it. So, we analysts we're more like translators. We're more like translators. And what are we trying to do? We're trying to translate, raw data to end users. So your ability to clearly communicate this thing is essential to your success. Whether you are communicating in terms of written, visuals, verbal, non-verbal, it's just for you to have that ability to listen and to interpret, give feedback effectively. So it's important for you as an analyst to have good communication skill, because you as an analyst, you are acting as a translator between the raw data and end users. So those are the analytic tools that are quite important for us, in order for us to reason as analysts. Let's move on. Data analysis workflow. Data analysis workflow. Without a process, you're a flying bird. You are flying blind. So when you don't have a process, you are flying blind. And here is a structured approach. What are we talking about? First thing, you need to understand the business case. So for you to work as an analyst, the first thing you need to understand is what the business case. Define the objective and identify stakeholder, determine success metrics. So before you start thinking like an analyst, you need to actually think like the business owner. Because the first thing you're trying to look at, okay, this is what you are trying to solve. You are trying to understand some outcomes. You are trying to impact to the particular business. So you're trying to say, okay, if we have this objective, who are we? Identifying your stakeholders. When you identify your stakeholders, you're trying to determine the success metrics that you can use. Another one we need to look at is what? Build a measurement plan. Build a measurement plan. So, for example, building a measurement plan is saying that the first thing you need to do is do what? You need to choose relevant KPIs. What do you mean by KPI? We're talking about key performance index. So you are trying to do what? You're trying to choose relevant KPIs in the aspect of why you choose this key performance indicators. Key performance indicators. So you choose a relevant KPI, define data requirements, then plan data collection method. So after I get to build a measurement plan, it's like you trying to measure how you want to go about things. You're not just getting your data and the next thing you're trying to just go into analyzing what you don't even know what you're trying to do. What do you want to work on? How do you get your data requirements? How do you get your data? You just, okay, this is what I want to do. Boom, just get one particular data and start working on it. No. So it is important as analysts to do what? To be able to build a measurement plan. Another aspect we are looking at too is collect and prepare the data. So for you to think like a reasonable analyst, some of the things you need to understand in data analysis workflow is to do what? Is to collect and prepare the data. And how do you do that? The first thing you are trying to do is gather data from various sources, clean and validate data, transform data for analysis. These are things that we need to what? Look at. When you gather data from the various sources, you try to say, okay, at least you gathering data from various sources, you already know your measurement plan. You already know your measurement plan because from the start you understand the business case, and after understanding the business case, you are building you build the measurement plan, and the next thing you have to do what? Collect and prepare the data. So you can always say that an analysis is only as strong as the data that is supporting it. So, and when you're talking about preparing data, it's actually one of the most challenging and time-consuming stage when it comes to about data analysis workflow, because about 70% of your time when you're working with data is done on collecting, cleaning, and preparing this particular data and cleaning this data. So it's important for you to be able to know how to clean and collect and prepare your data, because it creates a strong foundation for your analysis as an analyst. And it ensures that you're working with a clean and high quality data, because it is very important you work with such data. Now, another thing we should look at is also what? Understand the data. So understanding the data is explore data distributions, identify the patterns and the anomalies, check data quality. So when we are doing things like we are getting to see, how is this data looking like? Is it normally distributed? Do we have anomalies there? How do we check for outliers? Are we checking for data quality? Is it complete? Is there anything missing there? Identify this. Let's identify the patterns here. So when you understand this data, it will help you, to make your analysis good and interesting. Because by the time you look at the data, you might look at, I've seen this data, and but then you need to know that it's when you understand your data, it's easy for you to just get that thing that would support your analysis, that would help you in getting to analyze effectively and what you want to analyze well, in order for you to get answers. So when you understand the data you're working with, you'll be able to know how you go about analyzing it and getting the desired results you want to get from your data. And another aspect is to do what? Analyze and visualize the data. So the first thing is apply, which is what? Apply appropriate analytic techniques. Number 2, create meaningful visualizations. Number 3, test hypothesis. So when we're trying to, analyze and visualize. You need to understand that data visualization is about bringing your data to life. When we talk about interpreting data sometimes, humans don't find it easy sometimes to interpret this data. But when we have been able to give a meaningful visualization to this data, it's easy for humans to see it and be able to clearly understand the patterns and clearly understand, what you are trying to pass across to them when you get to visualize and create meaningful visualizations. Another thing we need to understand is also do what? Develop data-driven insights. Developing data-driven insight is you what? Extracting key findings, formulate actionable recommendation, and you create what? Compelling data story. So when you are able to extract key findings, now you'll be able to see that you as an analyst, you are being able to solve problems. And solving this problem is you have been able to see where the issue is coming from, that you will be using these key findings you've gotten to what? To answer in order for the growth of the particular company, or in order for effective decision making. So when you develop a data-driven insight, it helps to move business forward. It helps to do what? To make right decisions. And another aspect we are supposed to look at also is to do what? Measure, test, and optimize. So in terms of measure, we're saying implement recommendations. After you've get into recommend and a way for them to go about these issues. You monitor the outcome too. Then you iterate it and you what? Improve in it. So as an analyst, it's important for you to do what? To measure, test, and do what? And optimize. As these are essential data flows, workflow that we're supposed to know, data analysis workflow that would help us to become great analysts when we need to reason like us, analysts. Now, practical tips for success. Practical tips for success. Stay with the end in mind. Start with the end in mind. Always start with that. When you start, always have that end in your mind too. Always question your assumption. When you assume that, okay, this is one of the things that is making this like this, question it. How valid is this assumption? How valid is this assumption? And aside that, you need to focus on impact, not just insight. Focus on impact, not just insight. So, and some of the things you need to understand is learn from failures. For you to reason like an analyst, you need to learn from what? Failures. Another aspect is to stay current with industry trends. So I'm trying to get insight. How is it going to impact what you are working on? As we look at this particular section, I'm sure most of us were expecting, just Excel practical. No, we need to understand that when we are in a particular field, we need to understand what are those things we're trying to do there, what makes us different from those that are out there, what can make our work unique, and these are the things we are trying to discuss when we talk about reasoning like an analyst. So some practical tips for success in mind: always question your assumption, focus on impact, not just insight, learn from failures, and stay current with what? Industry trends. And aside that, next step, what do we do? Practice with real data sets, build a portfolio of analysis, network with other analysts, never stop learning and what? And explore. Never stop learning and explore. So after this class, like I said, we're going to be starting our series next week where we get to start looking at things we need to know and understand as analysts. Whereas we start with the statistics, we're going to be learning some basic statistics, which is quite important for us to know why we are going through this analysis journey. When we talk about Excel, what can Excel do? Some of the things Excel can help us do. How powerful is Excel? We talk about Power BI too, which we're going to be looking at. We're going to be starting with statistics. We'll be learning some basic statistics, some important statistics in terms of knowing about some central tendencies, measure of dispersions, where we get to see how this thing get to how this functions, or how these things get to help us influence our what? Analysis. And aside that, we will also build charts. So see how analysts get data and get to get insights from it. And some of these things are what we are going to be, looking at where we start our series next week. And like I said, come prepared because we're going to be looking at it theoretically. We're also going to be looking at it practically where we get to apply, we get to pick up data sets. And when we pick up data sets, we're trying to, get insights from it. Obviously, we have been able to understand that as analysts, we have a process and a flow that we must follow when we are trying to do what to analyze our data. And while we get to put that in mind, always remember that we're not just trying to get insights from it, but also trying to understand the impact those insights are going to be having to our data or to our having to our the problems we're going to answer from the data set given to us. So that's like I said, never stop learning and what exploring. Remember, great analysts aren't born; they are made through practice, curiosity, and persistence. Thank you. Do we have any question? This slide is going to be dropped on the group. I will share it to the group. Literally, like I said, it's just for us to have this section. It's not something that's supposed to take a long time. Where we get to take long times of where we start doing our work, where we start to go deep into data analysis. So if we have any question, please let's ask before we call it a day on this section of reasoning like an analyst.
Wow, wow, wow. This is actually it's actually very fun and being an analyst. Wow. Does anybody have a question to ask? Let's just give a minute for any question. Thank you so much, Mr. Timmy. Thank
Yeah,
you so
thank you
much.
very much.
All right, so I think there is no question. It is well understood.
Okay, so uh, like I said, the slide will be dropped on the group, and the slide will be dropped on the group, and we'll be able to go through it for those of us that were not able to join from the start. And like I said, this section is not supposed to be a long section. And by God's grace, starting next week, we'll start going deep into analytical um, field where we're starting with statistics, like I said, looking at some important statistic functions that we're supposed to, understand and know, which we will be applying sometimes to some of our analysis. Sometimes we hear about the word mean media mode. Where do they come in? Where do they get to help us solve problem? Where do they get to be useful? So it's not just them, just us calling those functions. Or what are they doing in terms of standard deviation and variance? What are we trying to understand? Some of all these things are what we get to understand before we now start looking at Excel. We have an overview of Excel, look at some functions and some formulas in Excel that can help us get insight, to solve problems. Then we look at Power BI too, where we get to look at the overview, we get to look at our Canva, we get to understand how we get to load, you know, data into Excel, into Power BI. We get to know how to extract and also how to transform data. You've been hearing about dirty data, dirty data. Yes, it's just like you going to go and buy beans, and the next thing you need to pick up the beans. You can't just buy the beans and then cook like that. You need to pick it up. You need to clean it. And for you to clean, you need to watch out for some things. So while you are cleaning data, too, it's important that you need to see and understand something that you need to put into play for you to do what? For you to clean your data. Like I said, 70% of the time is always spent on cleaning data. That the meaning is just for you to visualize and you know um, recommend. So thank you very much. The first class is holding on. Will be holding on Monday,
Um,
where I'll be dropping the time and the medium we're going to be using. Whether we're going to use Telegram or we're going to use Google Meet. So, but then we're starting with statistics. So it's going to be a series that we run through October and November, which is us meeting twice a week, and we'll be getting to get our hands dirty with data. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thanks for the insight.
All right, Mr. Timmy, thank you so much. So we can
Yeah,
call it a day.
yeah, definitely. Thank you.